What's a ticking time bomb you believe will explode during your lifetime? The Cascadia subduction zone will move. I'm 35. It's 320 plus years into an average cycle of 220 years between major earthquakes over the last 10,000 years. The last one was about 1701-ish. If one like Fukushima or worse happens, it will be the largest natural disaster in human history, and it won't even be close. I've seen FEMA plans that list 6+ months of airlift operations into affected areas since literally none of the infrastructure is ready to withstand a quake of that level. Almost 20% of Seattle City proper is located on a liquefaction zone where the ground will go almost liquid. It's going to be catastrophic. Tens of thousands could be wiped in minutes. Story 2. The decline of third spaces and social isolation. Bars and pubs have been on the decline due to less alcohol consumption. Generally a good thing, but still. Malls and movie theaters are experiencing a decline in foot traffic due to online shopping and streaming. Even Starbucks and other coffee shops are floundering. At this rate, the day will come fairly soon when the only reason anyone leaves home is to work or to the grocery store, assuming delivery and online orders don't fully take over here as well. Story 3. Levee breakage and mass flooding along the Mississippi River due to an earthquake on the New Madrid Fault. Levees have been built higher and higher over the years all along the Mississippi to prevent flooding. When the river floods, it dumps sediment onto the floodplains. If you prevent flooding, this sediment builds up on the riverbed, and slowly the water level will begin to rise. Water goes up, more levees, less flooding, water goes up, more levees, etc. You get the idea. The New Madrid Fault runs right along and through the river, where Tennessee, Missouri, and Arkansas meet. This is one of the most potentially powerful faults in North America, and is not at the border of two tectonic plates as most faults are, but in the middle of one plate. Intraplate earthquakes create a lot more seismic energy than interplate ones at the same magnitude, so they have a larger effect on structures or landforms. These types of faults also very rarely create earthquakes, so people in their radius are not prepared for them and do not harden buildings against earthquakes. They quietly build up tension for decades, then out of nowhere produce very high magnitude quakes. Story 4. There are plenty of things I could point out when it comes to sports. The loose NIL, name, image, likeness rules in the NCAA. TV networks being able to block games unless you pay for their subscriptions, or the insane amounts of money colleges pour into athletics while campuses crumble and student loan debt keeps climbing. But people are going to miss the days before gambling completely took over sports. With networks launching their own betting apps, commentators constantly talking about the odds, and fans always wondering if the games are being manipulated, it feels inevitable that this whole system will eventually collapse. And when it does, the fallout won't just hit sports. It'll wreck individuals, families, and their finances. Honestly, I believe sports betting will become the leading addiction behind divorces within the next decade, surpassing even alcohol and drugs. Mark my words. Story 5. The growing wage gap. When the top make more in a year than they can spend in 10 years, and the bottom can't afford rent, it's going to lead to problems. And as it gets worse, the pressure will build. I feel like sometime in the next 20 years, we will see a class revolution that will end with a wealth rebalancing and new safeguards to try to prevent it from getting this bad again. Part of that will be laws preventing corporate lobbying, bribes, donations, etc. to politicians, with some severe consequences. Stronger anti-monopoly laws as well, and most importantly, higher taxes for the upper echelon, and not just on income, but on gaining wealth in any format. We created a healthy middle class mid-century by taxing the rich at 90% plus. We need to go back to that. Bezos can live on $7 billion a year, and the middle and lower classes could use $63 billion in support, from free education, lower taxes, social programs, what have you. Story 6. Oh, so many things, and a lot of it won't be measurable. For example, I think AI will reach a point of no return, which will lead to a plethora of issues. But I also think that the overuse of AI will lead to a decrease in critical thinking skills, which are already on the decline anyway. But yeah, AI, housing, wage disparity, extremism, bigotry, natural disasters, etc. all feel like they're reaching a boiling over point. But if I had to choose one, heat. People talk about climate change in the context of melting ice caps and destabilized ecosystems, which is all true, but the truth is, it's going to get really hot. I have no doubt that in my lifetime, we will start having heat days, where people are advised to stay inside at home because it's genuinely too hot to go outside. So glad I live in the era of a handful of rich guys destroying the planet for a few extra bucks before they die. Story 7. Insurance is already becoming a problem in high-risk areas. Most private home insurers have left Florida, leaving the state as the insurer of last resort, but the rates being charged aren't nearly enough to cover the cost of a major disaster. What's likely is that at some point a massive event like an F5 hurricane will strike a large city, and rebuilding will be impossible without huge amounts of federal funding, which isn't guaranteed. This could lead to the abandonment of mid-sized metro areas, and potentially even a major city such as Miami or Orlando. Story 8. Streaming services and paying a subscription for everything, including software licenses. I've already hopped off the Netflix train. I'm sick of movies I love or TV shows I'm halfway through being removed because they dictate it. People don't own anything these days, and it's appalling. Now I go down to my local secondhand video store and stock up on Blu-rays of my favorites. No one can take those away from me. But even worse than that, VPNs, Photoshop, AutoCAD, all on monthly or yearly subscriptions. Software licenses make it so the software you continuously use day in and day out to run your business could just be taken away from you in an instant because the company says so. What happened to the good old days where you pay a couple of $100 for a copy of Photoshop and then it's yours to work with until it won't run anymore? At some point, this whole ideal is going to crumble, and I just can't wait for it. Story 9. H5N1 influenza, also known as bird flu, was first discovered in 1959. In 2022, it made the jump to spread between mammals. Since 2008, it's changed in major ways at least 20 to 40 times, forming different clades and subclades. Right now, the newest versions still don't attach well to human respiratory cells. That means when people catch it, usually from handling animals, they don't easily spread it to others through coughing or breathing. So far, only about 1,000 people have ever been infected, but out of those, roughly 500 have died. The exact numbers may vary, but the risk is clear. The virus is still evolving. If it eventually adapts to spread efficiently between humans, the outcome could be extremely serious. Not long ago, even as recently as last year, the US would have been able to quickly make and roll out vaccines if that happened, but that capacity seems to have passed, which means, statistically speaking, the real challenge may be ahead. Story 10. Our educational system. There are teacher shortages everywhere. Teachers are leaving the profession. More people are homeschooling their children. Standards are constantly being lowered. All they do is test the students. Faculty members, parents, and students are in fear of school shootings. Parents want to file lawsuits, and COVID just amped it all up. I really fear in years to come that there are going to be fewer schools and classrooms because nobody trusts public education. Story 11. The US. Weak leadership is what always brings down superpowers. Greedy, stupid, divisive leadership is a death sentence for nations which have been successful in the past. Look at the train of imbeciles that have run the US since George W. Bush. They've just gotten dumber and dumber and made worse decisions. Obama was charismatic and well-liked, but I'm not sure if he made much of an impact. And the division under Trump is a big problem. Although still a very minor power, Russia has not been this powerful since the Cold War, but China is just choosing its moment. The US will step down to the second seat in our lifetimes. Story 12. Longevity for the highest bidders. Current longevity research has made incredible strides, to the point where the technology to extend healthy human lifespan to 200 or 300 years may not be that far off. Society, however, is not structured in a way that will allow this benefit to be shared equitably across the human population. Thus, the richest people may have hundreds more years to oppress, puppeteer, and exploit the rest of humanity. If these advances are genetic and involve germline editing, then we may see the rise of a permanently superior version of humans, which would codify wealth disparity into our very DNA. If we survive all the other more immediate threats, humanity still has a soft expiration date as genetic edits slowly speciate us into something new. Story 13. I believe we will see the fall of the USA, Russia, and China within the next 10 years. While the fall of the US will be somewhat calm, it will splinter into several smaller countries. The fall of Russia and China will cause major upheaval due to the politics in that area. For Russia, I see the complete loss of its southern territories, which will be split between Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Georgia, and Azerbaijan, and everything east of the Ural Mountains, which will become its own countries. As for China, I can see its western and northern parts becoming countries of their own. Inner Mongolia returning to Mongolia, Tibet and Hong Kong will be free again, Vietnam taking Hainan and Taiwan making a push towards the mainland. All in all, a decade of war before the map is redrawn. Story 14. Southwestern United States will go from being in a drought to a full-blown water crisis. The Colorado River that supplies reservoirs, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, has been receiving less precipitation every year. Reservoirs are at levels they haven't seen since they were being filled. There are 5 states with water rights to the Colorado River, and the entire country of Mexico. The Phoenix metro area has been and continues to grow in population. Tech industries have been moving out there for the cheap land, building data centers and microchip fabs that are all incredibly water intensive. Cities have started to build groundwater wells for reserves, but that will only last so long. Phoenix proper has started to implement toilet-to-tap water reclamation, but the water that is treated this way is only sent to the older and less affluent households. North Phoenix neighborhoods still get potable water, originating from the Colorado River. Water will begin by getting more expensive than it already is, with normal people subsidizing the costs incurred by heavy users like data centers and golf courses, followed by a collapse of the housing market in the area as everyone flees from the exorbitant water costs. Story 15. Research careers, PhD, and their employment safety bubble will burst. There will be a shortage of people pursuing a PhD due to unemployment. A growing trend currently is there are too many people for very few jobs. This will create a new rat race leading to people with less creative thinking and reasoning. Companies will have to build models to outperform human thinking. Without jobs, people's trust in education and research careers drop, and ultimately many will give up science and technology, thinking it's too complex and not economic to compete. Story 16. A lot of the chemicals and stuff in our daily lives we class as safe, we're going to find out its effects are cumulative. So no, it's not safe, and that's why we have the technology and scientific knowledge to identify things like this, but also hard-driven corporate greed that will try to suppress the findings. Every generation had something. The Victorians used to put stuff like arsenic in household stuff amongst other things. We put radioactive paint on stuff. There was DDT building up in the food chain a couple of decades ago. The effects of lead, it's banned in petrol where I am, but they still found it in the air in some places a few years ago apparently. We still don't fully understand the impact of microplastics in the food chain and human bodies. We don't have the data yet. We're going to have another of crap moments where we find something that's in nearly everything. Really shouldn't be. Story 17. I'm 23, so I am guessing a general water and energy crisis will be a real thing by the 2050s and 2060s. Like we are drilling oil way too fast and eventually wells will dry up. Watch the Middle East face major issues if they can't invest in solar power by then. As for water, human population growth is going to put serious pressure on it. China, for example, controls the sources of major rivers in India and Pakistan. Who is to say they wouldn't threaten to just shut off the water? Now, multiplied by this around the world, energy and water wars will be a thing by the time I'm in my 70s and 80s. Story 18. The big one in Southern California, meaning the big earthquake that is overdue. It's been really peaceful for a long time now. We are expecting a 7.0 plus earthquake on the Richter scale, something bigger than the Northridge earthquake that occurred when I was a baby. The Northridge earthquake toppled freeways and they landed on top of each other, crushing people in their cars below. And no one is really prepared for the big one. Most people don't care or believe we will be hit with a big earthquake, but we live on the Ring of Fire. Earthquakes happen all the time. The big one is coming soon. Story 19. Brain drain and mounting tech debt. I'll give an example. Currently, a number of important industries and government systems are being propped up by a few bearded guys in their 60s who still know Fortran and COBOL. Once they retire, there's not enough know-how to maintain or modernize these systems without significant disruption. Most likely, AI vibe coding will be used, which will add to another ticking time bomb. Generation Z and beyond are as technologically inept as the boomers, and the advent of AI replacing junior coders are creating the above situation for everything. The chain of knowledge transfer from senior to junior coders is broken, and at the same time, insecure AI vibe coding is creating an absolute mountain of tech debt that there simply will not be enough experienced coders to sort out. It's going to be an absolute security nightmare. And at the same time, we're becoming ever more reliant on systems for everything in our daily lives. I'm not a Luddite yet, but I think the mounting negatives of accelerating tech complexity and ubiquity are starting to outweigh the positives. Story 20. Capitalism is imploding because of AI. I'm not 100% certain of it happening in my lifetime, because I believe we're still a long way off despite what tech bros are trying to shove down people's throats. But I think 60 years is a reasonable time frame to see AGI created. Because of that, I'm really annoyed with the meager and small-minded conversations people are having around AI on both sides. This isn't something that's just going to work itself out if we rip all the ethics out of its way. But also, people are like, wait, we need to talk about how it's not very good, so we shouldn't be replacing jobs with it yet. It will get that good. The early adopters are stupid, but it will still happen eventually. Capitalism completely functions on you gaining value based on the value of what you produce for the common person. When that implodes, and it will because nobody's work will be valuable to a capitalist after that, our entire way of life will shatter. All the authoritarian oligarchy bullcrap we've been worried about will happen overnight. We needed to have started implementing a robust socialist backbone yesterday. Story 21. The bursting of the AI bubble. That one is probably going to make the e-commerce crash of the early 00s look quaint. And that's not even taking into account how many billion-dollar deals are being signed to create entire facilities that are going to disappear almost overnight. The entire thing is so rife with bullcrap marketing, completely lackluster or flat-out damaging results, and a cult-like following that keeps pumping way too much money into it. Yes, some parts of it work well, but that's mainly because we have been using them for a long time, back when people didn't market algorithms as AI. Story 22. Insurance and insurance-adjacent industry. Vehicles are increasingly being built in a way where the repairs are more and more costly. Insurance companies are exiting entire sectors of certain housing markets. The decline of purchasing power versus ever-increasing inflation and price gouging across all areas of consumer consumption will probably end up causing a mass exodus of people paying for legally obligated insurance across the board. That could cause a tipping point in a collapse of many insurance companies. I think this will lead to a simultaneous collapse of lending as well. Insurance is unaffordable. I can't get a loan, can't afford insurance. Smaller and smaller pools of money circulating. Story 23. I think that countries are aligning against US hegemony and how basically everyone has been forced into reliance on the dollar as a currency of trade. I will not be surprised to see the collapse of both the dollar and the American system within my life. I also think it's possible that we will experience a foreign invasion, though nobody talks about that, because we're the greatest military in the world, but we are being driven into the ground by incompetent people who have no fucking idea what they're doing, and that weakening of all of our systems. It is to the great joy of people who do not wish this country well. They will use it to their advantage. If everyone wants to see you fail, it's hard to succeed. Story 24. Particularly if you do not have competent leaderships and systems that function. A few things. The near extinction of the Cavendish banana, mirroring the near extinction of its predecessor, the Gros Michel. The disappearance of real chocolate. Actually, we might as well just chalk this up into massive famine. You'll see standard food goods get labeled as luxury over time, and then those luxuries just appreciate in value until they're inaccessible. Chocolate will be one of the first. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria, likely from a combination of over-medication and the release of long-dormant biotics from the melting ice caps. Oh, and throw in conspiracy theorists, and yeah, we got a cocktail for disaster. I'm gonna be real, I'll be surprised if we don't see another nuclear attack within my lifetime. IDK, if it'll be an all-out nuclear war, I doubt it actually, but we'll likely see one get launched. Maybe something just as bad will get developed, or worse. Water crisis, and not just in developing countries, which is our fun way of saying Countries which were more developed until we came in and took their resources to ship off as products. Yeah, that whole system, gonna explode. Story 25. I'm pretty sure that social media, dating apps specifically, are going to result in a population crash unlike anything ever seen in history. As a millennial raised in the real world, no iPad, no social media until approximately 16, which was deleted after a year, and more. I have pretty good social skills by boomer or Gen old millennial standards. These new kids are so screwed. 95% of them have no social skills whatsoever and are approximately 10 years behind where they should be. It's terrifying. Dating in my age group, early 20s, is a nightmare. It feels like no one under 35 knows how to hold a proper conversation. Short of hookups, it's dry out there. I don't see it getting any better because these new gens don't have the architecture to build new skills without devices. Seriously wouldn't be surprised if the birth rate dropped below 0.5 per woman in the developed world before 2075. Story 26. Automation, AI, and the job losses it will bring. Taxis are already being automated. Trains are the next logical step. Maybe buses, but not airplanes. How many people are out of work in your country with no transferable skills, and a lot of who are too old to retain? Now think about hospitality/catering. Vegas is already using robot bartenders. Pizza vending machines exist. McDonald's have a burger flipping machine capable of cooking 1,000 plus burgers per hour. How many of those jobs will be redundant in the next 15 years, and where will those workers go? Add in call center workers and customer service agents, and we're looking at millions of fewer jobs in the UK alone, with 5 or 6 times more in the States. Now, what government do you see who is currently preparing for this? The millions of extra unemployed, the billions lost in income tax and other tax contributions for every country. We're screwed, and my lifetime is only 40 years left. Story 27. Honestly, World War III. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the people that say, oh, that'll never happen are right. But it feels like the world is a pot very close to boiling over, and the heat just keeps slowly getting turned up. Between extreme political division, AI is injecting its disinformation cocktail of doubt into us without us even knowing. The wars/almost wars, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, China, Taiwan, all the Axis and Allies team picks are already done. Oh yeah, then there's just a giant red flag that is climate change that everyone seems to be ignoring. Areas of the globe are becoming less and less habitable, while the global population continues to rocket up. More people, less space. It feels like that boiling pot just keeps getting hotter, and it doesn't feel like it's going to get turned down anytime soon.